events that happened over the past year, not just in Chicago, but around the country, make us all aware of the necessity of that change. And those of you in this room are here because you care about the future of this city. The protests that happened last year were necessary, and because of those protests, voices and issues were raised, and as a result of that, in December, the mayor put together this police accountability task force. The task force has been going around the city, holding meetings like this to hear from you. Like I said, it's a listening tour. You guys are the stars of the show. The only way that we can make this relationship between law enforcement and community better is by opening up the lines of communication. And so tonight, that's why we're here. We're gonna have you guys come up and make comments. We're gonna pass out comment cards. I'm gonna get into that a little later on and how we're gonna do that in an orderly process. But first, before I do that, I'm gonna bring to the podium our host for the evening, our community host, President and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, Sherry Runner, everybody. I'm on my second day, for Lent I gave up alcohol, so if I start shaking up here, somebody give me some vodka, okay?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Matt. I'm glad to see so many people here. Your presence indicates that you care about the Chicago and the police and the policing of Chicago. And that's really important, but it's also important that when you speak your truth to the power that is here tonight, that we make sure that substantive change occurs. We need to stay engaged much after the report is released. We need to make sure that whatever recommendations are put forward to the mayor and to the new superintendent, that those changes take place. And I want to say something that's a little off topic, but equally as important. If you haven't registered to vote yet, please do so. And once you do that, please stay as engaged as you are here tonight to make sure that you know who your candidates are and what the issues are. And please go vote in both the primary and in the general election. That's all I have to say, and I welcome you all here, and I thank you for coming.
For Sherry Runner, everybody, we know how important the Urban League is to our community, right? For years, the Urban League has been at the forefront of economic development in our community, providing jobs and training for our community, and they continue to do that today. So it's important that we acknowledge that, the hard work of the Urban League. Right now, we're going to get everything started. Again, I'm going to go over the process of getting out the cards for you guys to put your comments down. If you don't want to come up to the podium, if you do, you're also going to get cards as well so that you can make your statements. Before we start all of that, I'll bring up to the podium, guys. She is the chairman of the Chicago Police Board and also of the Police Accountability Task Force. Had her on the show this morning, an incredible interview. When you listen to WVOA, you get these incredible interviews like we had today. Everybody give it up for Lori Lightfoot.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Oh, come on, you can do a little better than that. I know it's cold out. You came out. So good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for coming out on a cold night. I think your presence here demonstrates several things. One, that the issues that we're going to be discussing over the next couple hours are things that are important to all of us and important to you. You're showing your concern and your compassion about your community and the larger city of Chicago by being here tonight, and we very much appreciate it. As Matt said, this is the Police Accountability Task Force. We were organized by the mayor in early December. And since that time, we have been working diligently to organize ourselves, and we're organized into 5 working groups, and I'll talk about those in a moment. But primarily what our interest in tonight is to listen and to learn from you. We are here, and we've been going, this is the second event of 4, going to all parts of the city so that we can understand from you what's happening in your neighborhoods, what's happening to you, your family members, issues of importance related to policing in Chicago. And we certainly recognize that there's a level of frustration, a level of anger that's out there. And we understand that, and we are here to listen to you in an unvarnished way, what your specific thoughts and concerns are. But we also hope that you will bring to us some suggestions for solutions, because that's really what we're interested in doing. We intend to report what we have seen, what we have heard from all of you, but we also want to move forward with real solutions that are going to address the concerns that you have about policing and your concerns in your neighborhood. So I want to encourage you to add any solutions as well as whatever your specific concerns are. Let me talk to you a little bit briefly about the working groups. As I indicated, we are organized basically into 5 working groups, one of which is the Community Engagement Working Group. And as not surprisingly, what we're doing through that group in particular is talking to folks. Thank you very much for dimming those lights, I appreciate it. We're talking to folks like you all over the city to get a sense of what's happening out there and how it is that the relationship between the police and the community has broken down. Now, I've said before that the trust has been broken, and many people have said, what trust? And we recognize that that's a range of perspectives out there. But we also recognize, and I hope you agree with me, that it's very important that the police be successful in their mission, because we have people in neighborhoods who absolutely need the police to come when they call, because there's a great need because of what's going on their block, in their home, and elsewhere. But obviously the police need to do that in a way that is respectful of the people that they're serving and protecting, and abiding by the laws that they have sworn to protect, sworn to uphold. So that's community is one of our working groups. Another working group is focused on coming up with a common sense policy related to video release. And I won't go into more detail of that. Sergio Acosta, one of my colleagues, will talk about that. Another is looking at an early warning system, early intervention system for police officers. We've heard a lot in the news about police officers who have racked up a number of citizen complaints and other things that are red flags that suggest that they are not fit for duty, or that they have some particular problem with being able to fulfill their responsibilities. We want to make sure that the police department identifies those officers at the earliest possible stage and comes up with a systematic form of interventions so that they can either get them back on track or, if not, manage them out of the department. Another area that we're looking at, excuse me, is what we'll call legal oversight. We're looking specifically at what's the right structure of oversight for the police department and for IPRO, and are there any laws, whether they're state laws, whether they're general orders, city ordinances, that impede accountability. Because literally everything that we're focused on not only is rebuilding trust or laying a foundation for that trust where it hasn't been before, but we need to make sure that there is transparency and accountability on the part of police officers. Now, I'm going to stop there and introduce first to my left Sergio Acosta, who will tell you a little bit about his working group.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight and having us here at this beautiful facility and a very important public forum we're having. Yes, my name is Sergio Acosta. By way of background, I was a former federal prosecutor. Now I'm in private practice doing primarily criminal defense work, so I know both sides of the issue. I've worked with many great police officers over the years. I've also prosecuted police officers as a civil rights prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office. The working group that I'm heading up is one devoted to coming up with a policy for releasing videotapes of some of these incidents. All right, the incidents similar to the McDonald case, where police are using force. Someone is seriously injured while in police custody. We have been working very hard on this. We've had a number of meetings over the past several weeks and are very close to coming up with a final recommendation that the task force will consider and then make a recommendation to the mayor and the city council. You should know that up until now there has been no policy, there is no policy in the city of Chicago, and frankly there are very few policies around the country that the cities have with respect to releasing these types of videotapes. So it's, I think we're going to make a bold recommendation. It's very much a cutting edge issue across the country, and I look forward to, if any of you have comments tonight, that you'd like to share with us regarding what you believe ought to be part of that policy. We're very anxious to hear your views. So thanks again for coming out.
Randall Stone.
Good evening. My name is Randall Stone. I run a criminal and juvenile justice clinic at the Mandel Legal Aid Clinic, University of Chicago Law School. And we represent children and young adults who are accused of crime in juvenile court and in adult criminal court. And we also work on policy reform issues. My working group is involved with community relations. So it's the largest of all the working groups. We've got about 15 or 20 members from different community groups and organizations who we will be working together looking at a number of issues related to community relations. For example, we'll be looking at accountability, how police officers are held accountable when they engage in misconduct. We'll be looking at issues of racism. We'll be looking at protecting human and civil rights and other issues just related to the police and the community. And as was mentioned earlier, trying to figure out ways in which we can create an environment where the police are treating people with dignity and respect, regardless of what community they come from. I'm hopeful that you guys can help us in developing some recommendations to accomplish that result.
Victor Dixon.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. I'm representing the SAFER Foundation on the task force. And SAFER is an organization that helps people with criminal records become employed. We do a lot of work in the area of policy and legislation to reform our criminal justice system, to eliminate barriers that people face who have criminal records, and to increase more opportunity and more resources. And I'm going to be assisting Randolph with the community and police relations working group. So thank you so much. Looking forward to hearing your comments.
And Joe Ferguson.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm the Inspector General for the City of Chicago. I've held that position for 6 years. Our organization's responsibility is to pursue misconduct, ineffectiveness, inefficiency, and integrity issues in the City of Chicago. Some of our work extends into the police department, but it's a much broader mandate. I want to speak specifically about the work of the Accountability and Oversight Working Group, and hopefully communicate to you that it's not merely the people who are sitting up here that are doing this work, but an extraordinary cross-section representative of this city that are engaged in supporting the work of each one of these subject areas. And so, for example, our working group includes a program director from the MacArthur Justice Center, MacArthur Foundation, BPI, elected officials at the state and local level, Senator Kwame Raoul, Alderman Anthony Beal, members of the Criminal Defense Bar, members of the Civil Rights Bar. Each one of the working groups, great effort has been made to recruit a cross-section so that all voices are heard at an institutional level, but these events, these moments are time for you to tell us what you think we should be focusing on, and we want to hear your ideas. This is a singular moment. Thank you for being here. We all look forward to hearing from you.
And I also want to introduce former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, a Chicago native, who is serving as a senior advisor to the task force. He has really been incredibly invaluable to our work from day one, and we very much appreciate him taking time out of his schedule to be here with us tonight. And one other working group that I apologize I neglected to mention early on is de-escalation. There we're looking at the ways in which the police department officers are trained and how they engage in crisis situations with individuals who are suffering either emotional or mental distress. Clearly that's been a big issue in the narrative over the last couple of months, and we are looking specifically at ways in which we can recommend for police officers to use little or no force in those circumstances and make sure that they're getting proper information when those calls come in, and that the right trained police officers are actually responding to those calls so they don't end up with use of force and certainly not a loss of life. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Matt.
All right, guys, we're going to start the comment portion of the program. If you do not or have not received a card and you would like to speak or have your comment read, please raise your hand and somebody will come by. We've got a gentleman right here. All right, and we got some cards. Somebody will come by and pick up your cards and also give you a card. You have an option, if you do not want to come up to the microphone and speak, to have your comment read, and I will do that for you. But I will ask you to write in large letters for me so when I read it, I can make it out. Also, guys, 2 minutes. We're going to have a 2-minute rule here. We've got to strongly enforce it to be fair to everyone so that everyone gets time. You cannot defer your time to somebody else. I know we've seen sometimes the subcommittees in Congress, I'd like to yield my time to the gentleman from Missouri. You can't do that here tonight. Avoid talking while others are speaking. I think most of us understand the respect level of that. And here's an important one that I have to do every morning on the morning show. Avoid personal attacks and accusations if you can. I know it's going to be tough, but we do want you to express yourself in the strongest terms possible, but we want to not make it so personal. Return to your seat after your question is answered or your major comment. And in fairness to everybody, only speak one time. Now, if you're in need of sign language, if anybody is in need of sign language translation, we do have somebody who can sign here for you. Notify us in advance by raising your hand. And lastly, this meeting is being videotaped and will be available on the Police Accountability Task Force website, which is ChicagoPATF.org. Again, ChicagoPATF.org. You write that down. You can also submit public comments there as well. So with that, I will begin our comments, and I will call to the microphone R. Williams. R. Williams, come to the microphone and we will take your comment. R. Williams in the house? R. Williams in the house. Going once, going twice. How about Steve? Steve Craig. There you go, Steve Craig. While Steve comes up, I'm going to read a comment from Minnie Johnson. Minnie, how would the police code of silence be handled? That is one of, as you guys know, they talk about the police. We talk about the code of silence in the community with the street gangs, and Minnie wants to know, how do we handle the code of silence with police officers?
Well, let me just briefly respond. And again, we're going to be primarily listening because we want to make sure that we get as many comments from the audience as possible. But obviously, the so-called code of silence is something that is very much a focal point of our work. We want to make sure that we are hiring police officers with complete integrity, and we also want to make sure that there are proper incentives and opportunities for police officers not only to conduct their own job with integrity, but to be on the lookout and not feel hesitant to report on the conduct of their colleagues that isn't consistent with the high standards that we expect all police officers to live by. So it's very much top of mind for us. And that's one of the things that we have been listening, and we've heard a lot of comments already about it. I suspect we'll hear some more tonight, but we're very focused on that issue.
All right, Steve.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, I think there's a problem with the power dynamic here that this whole task force is set up for. First of all, this task force is advisory. The mayor doesn't have to listen to you at all, so you can listen to us all you want and agree with us no matter what. The problem is the people in this room, the people in the city, the people in these communities need the power over the police. We need community control of the police through an all-elected Civilian Police Accountability Council. That's the only way this is going to change. Everybody's been talking about changing things from the top, and it just hasn't happened. We've already had the police force, we've had everyone, now we have a task force. This is all the same thing. This is rearranging chairs on the deck of the Titanic. You know, the people need power. That's the only way that we all
Thank you for your comment. Let me just briefly, I'm going to violate my rule, which is I don't want to talk too much, but we certainly recognize there's a lot of cynicism and concern out there. But I'll tell you why I think this is different than what's come before. There are, all of those of us who live in Chicago long enough know that there have been a number of moments in which there has been some effort at reform. I think this moment is different. It's different because of you, and different because of other people that are outside of this room who have raised their voices in protest and effectively said, enough is enough. We are here because of that, and we take that responsibility very, very seriously. Now, at the end of the day, the proof, as the saying goes, the proof will be in the pudding. But I feel very confident in speaking for my fellow task force members and the network of other people that are in the working groups that Joe Ferguson talked about. We have a responsibility to speak very hard truths. We're putting into writing things that maybe have never been discussed publicly before. And we believe that we will make a difference. Now, at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the mayor and the city council as to whether or not they want to be part of the change. But they're listening. And we hope that you will continue to raise your voices and to demand the change that I hope that we will point in the direction of where things need to go with our report. But I understand the skepticism, but I am confident that we will change the course of things for the police department because we have to.
R. Williams, did R. Williams, or Mr. and Mrs. R. Williams, anybody? No, not here. Jeff Baker. Jeff Baker, is Jeff Baker here? Is Jeff Baker here? Nope, all right. Adrian Afalo? Adrian Afalo. Adrian. 2 minutes.
Good evening, ma'am.
Well, I'm here today, I'm from Southside. Unfortunately, I don't trust the police department, literally in a nutshell, because I was brought up to respect the police. Now, in all this time, I've actually seen 4 policemen actually came to my aid. I had been harassed. I had been segregated by the police. Because when I was dealing with a white guy at the time who had a police record, and they picked us up and took us over there to the police department on 111th and Coilus, which happens to be the one where Burge was at. And I was taught that it's bad. Don't trust the police department. Don't trust no police. But there was one policeman who lived across the street from me who I trusted very vehemently. He was the man who helped me. When it came down to my sister getting bit in the 70s, he took the time out to take my sister and me to the hospital, called my parents up, and did everything they possibly could to help us out. And just recently when my purse got stolen in July of last year, I told the policeman that this is happening to me, I don't trust him. He said, I'll try to make it as possible and as blunt and as easy as I can. And he did. So I'm just wondering, all the times I've heard all this, are y'all going to change this whole situation? Because if you don't, something's going to happen. And it's going to be worse than it is. Ferguson's just the tipping point. Us, we're just the tipping point to all of this.
10 seconds.
Okay? Is it going to change? Yes, I want to believe y'all. But it won't happen if you don't change it. That's all I ask. Just change. I'm tired.
All right, I want to call Iman Jordan up. Iman John Hassan Jordan. Is Iman here? Here we go.
Peace be with you.
Good evening, sir.
I'm Mayor John Hassan Jordan. Emanuel means minister. I'm president of the Interfaith Action Coalition of America. I'm also a retired I was a field training officer, and I received many police officers who were emotionally unstable. They couldn't put them with me if I didn't have a crew. And some we made some adjustments, and some I had to go to the watchman and say, look, I can't deal with him. But psychologically, we do have policemen that have problems. And I think if the red flag comes up so many times in various aspects of enforcing the law, they should go back to the training division under a human development program, in which I have one, and sensitivity program. And we should have when I left the police department, we used to have the in-service training every quarter, and roll call training every week. You have to keep these processes before the face of the police officer, so he knows that the establishment wants change and want the police to be a professional police officer on the street. And you can't take everything personal when you're out there enforcing the law. And many times, at one time, the police officer that had problems, emotional problems, was put on the inside. But many times they don't, they keep them on the street. And at one time, too,
15 seconds.
At one time, we had interracial cars in certain areas. See, this to create a balance. Amen. Okay? And I think we should bring that back. And also the officer-friendly program, which I was one of the original officer-friendlies, and I helped develop that program. And we should bring that back to confront the young child, KG through 8, in regards to responsibility of the police officer and responsibility of the citizens to the police officer.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Commander Hendricks, are you in the house? I'm going to read a comment. I can't read the name of this one comment, but the comment is, this is for the panel. Why did it take this long to do something? Commander.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to acknowledge all my comrades in arms, all the veterans. Will you please rise right quickly? All veterans in the house. Thank you. As a long-time citizen and resident of the city of Chicago, I've attended several high schools and elementary schools. I have 2 points to make. The first point is that one of the initial things that a candidate stated in the 2006 election was one way to resolve all of the innocent children and adults getting shot and assassinated in the city of Chicago. It fell on deaf ears. His suggestion was that we allow these gangbangers and criminals to duel. If they were to duel, then we would pick up the aftermath. That was one of the suggestions that he made. Now, my individual before me stated exactly what I was going to suggest, that we have dual nationalities to come into our community. I had an experience in which it could have been escalated to an incident of which I would either been assaulted by a police officer or arrested. The reason that I was not escalated was because there were a black officer present, and he de-escalated the situation. So I agree with
30 seconds.
comment that we need to have dual nationalities in these incidents so that it will not be escalated to something that would precipitate a violence upon a citizen. And I thank you.
Thank you, Commander. Alden Lowry. Is Alden here? Alden Lowry. Alden is here. I've got another comment from Mr. Otha McCoy, and this is for Ms. Lightfoot. Did you work on the police corruption case, Operation Broken Star, Austin 7 police case in the late 90s?
No, I did not.
Alden?
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Alden Lowry, Senior Policy Analyst with the Better Government Association. The BGA policy team advocates for good government reform and works independently from the organization's better-known investigative unit. For years, the BGA has examined police accountability issues, documenting nearly $1 billion to litigate and settle lawsuits for alleged police misconduct and for wrongful convictions, and nearly 70 fatal police shootings in Chicago over a 5-year period, the most of any big city in the nation. In addition, BGA found police misconduct to be the most prevalent factor in wrongful convictions, more prevalent than mistakes made by prosecutors or eyewitnesses. And the BGA also found that just 4% of complaints against Chicago police have been sustained, a rate lower than what experts consider to be the national average. The failings of our police accountability system have cost taxpayers a fortune, and more importantly, they've cost the innocent hundreds of years behind bars. Allegations of police misconduct are the common threads. We can no longer belittle these complaints, fail to investigate them in a timely manner, and refuse to discipline officers who've made mistakes. To rebuild trust, the BGA strongly urges you to recommend permanently preserving police records related to misconduct allegations and investigations, studying complaints as potential red flags that warrant early intervention for officers who need support, counsel, training, or discipline, concluding investigations of officer-involved shootings and releasing video footage of such incidents within 30 to 60 days, responding to FOIA requests in a more favorable and timely fashion, and automatically posting documents produced routinely or sought frequently by the public. Greater transparency
15 seconds.
Greater transparency yields more accountability, and increasing accountability improves both credibility with and cooperation from the public, things that any effective police department needs. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Daniel Carter.
I'll just add, Mr. Lowry, and I'll say this to others, if you have specific written comments, we'd welcome to get a copy of them. If you have a copy now, you can hand them in to staff, or otherwise we can provide you with an outlet for transmitting written statements to us. Thank you.
Dana Carter. And Dana Carter. Is Dana Carter here? Madonna Carter. I'm sorry. I got a comment also from Maine Woods. I recommend for the flyer submitted by Administrative Defense to help improve the accountability, oversight, and training of Chicago's police officers. My comment relate to all the descriptions listed. Thank you. Thank you, Maine Woods, for that.
That's Marie Woods.
Marie, I'm sorry. Thank you, Marie.
You want my glasses?
I do.